HR fired me for working 2 jobs and called me replaceable after catching me near a rival office. They thought I'd betrayed them until their systems collapsed, clients fled, and the board begged me back at $2,000 an hour. Then watched me build a rival company that outsold them. Hey Reddit, I got fired for working 2 jobs. HR thought I was betraying the company, but really I was the only one keeping their systems alive. They learned that the hard way. But before we get there, let me start from the beginning. Helix Systems looked like every other tech company trying to look futuristic. Glass walls, white floors, fake plants everywhere. I was halfway through my first coffee when a calendar invite popped up. Clarification meeting, Dorian Hale. No context, just 15 minutes from now. Never a good sign. I walked into the small conference room. Dorian Hale from HR was already there, sitting at the head of the table with his fake calm face. Nova Train from compliance sat beside him, laptop open, fingers ready. Neither smiled for real. It was that tight, fake kind of smile people use when they think they're in charge. Morning, Aaron, Dorian started, doing the fake polite tone. We've had some concerns brought to our attention. I just nodded, waiting. I've learned silence makes people like him nervous. He turned his tablet around. A blurry photo of me outside the Veritas Dynamics building last Friday. Hoodie, laptop bag, my face half turned. Definitely me. We've confirmed this is you, Nova said, tone clipped. Can you explain why you were entering a competitor's office? Sure, I said. They asked for a short consulting session. Non-competitive work. Weekends only. Totally above board. Dorian leaned back in his chair, doing that HR power pose thing. Our policy doesn't allow outside employment that might conflict with Helix interests. Even the appearance of conflict is unacceptable. He loved that phrase. Appearance of conflict. It meant he didn't need proof, just vibes. That phrase isn't in the policy I signed, I said. I've got the PDF and its last modified date. You're lucky we don't press charges, he added. This could fall under intellectual property exposure. I could feel the heat in my neck, but I kept my tone even. I didn't copy anything. I didn't even use company equipment. He ignored that completely. You've been here, 3 years? You're good, Aaron, but you're replaceable. Brand loyalty matters. Maybe you've lost sight of that. That word, replaceable, always comes before a mistake. I couldn't help myself. If I'm replaceable, I said, leaning forward a little, try running authentication without me for a week. Nova stopped typing. Dorian blinked. The smirk slipped. He picked up a folder and slid a paper across the table. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. You'll be paid out for unused vacation. You can appeal through the usual channels. Right, I said, signing without hesitation. No yelling. No begging. If this was the game, they could have it. Dorian called security. They'll escort you to collect your things. Great service, I said. The guard who showed up looked more uncomfortable than I was. We walked through the open office quietly. People tried not to look, but I could feel every set of eyes following. My desk was the same mess as always. One monitor with too many tabs open, a cactus that somehow stayed alive, my notebook full of diagrams, and a chipped mug that said, "No root access for you." I dropped the mug into my backpack, closed the notebook, and grabbed my hoodie, leaving the cactus perched on the corner. Nico, the junior contract engineer sitting nearby, looked up from his screen. What happened? He whispered. Don't worry about it, I said. Just keep your backups up to date. Trust me. He looked confused, maybe scared. I didn't stop to explain. Security waited by the elevator. As the doors closed, I caught a reflection of the office behind me, people pretending to work while staring. I almost smiled. They had no idea how much of the system still ran on code only I understood. The elevator doors opened to the lobby. I handed the guard my badge. My phone buzzed. A text from Renata Voss. Still good for 3 p.m.? I typed back, better than good. I just became available full-time. Stepping outside, sunlight bouncing off the glass building. I felt lighter than I had in years. No badge, no fake meetings, no people pretending they owned me. Just quiet, open air, and whatever came next. My name's Aaron Vale, 34 years old, cybersecurity lead, well, former lead, at Helix Systems. I joined the place thinking it would be the kind of job you build a career around. Bram Layton, the CTO, sold it perfectly when he recruited me. He told me I'd be building the foundation of Helix's digital future. He talked about creative freedom, cutting-edge autonomy, all those phrases that sound good until you learn they mean you'll be fixing everything alone. At the start, it really looked promising. We had 8 people on the security team, smart folks who knew their stuff, Our Slack channel was alive 24/7. We handled SSO, network monitoring, endpoint protection, and all the little behind-the-scenes stuff that keeps a company from making the news for a data breach. Those first few months felt like a small army that actually worked in sync. Then came restructuring. They didn't call it layoffs, just cost optimization. Management said we were realigning resources. They cut half the team in one afternoon. Bram told me it was temporary, just a rough quarter. By the next quarter, the other half was gone too. It was just me and one contractor who left 6 months later when HR denied his raise. That's how I became the entire security department. I handled everything: identity access, intrusion detection, logging, and alerts. Every single thing with a password or a port somehow landed on my plate. There were weeks where I barely saw daylight. I'd get home at 2 a.m., crash for 3 hours, then wake up to a pager notification before the sun came up. My record was 43 alerts in one night. One attack I'll never forget hit at 2:43 a.m. Some botnet from overseas flooded our login API, choking the load balancer. I patched in tighter firewall rules, spun up a backup cache, and, as a last resort hotfix, stood up a throwaway proxy in my personal AWS. Risky and out of policy, but it kept us online. By 4 a.m., the site was running smooth again. By 8 a.m., I'd moved traffic back to corporate infra, tore the proxy down, rotated keys, and filed the incident with a full timeline for audit. The next morning, Bram was in an all-hands bragging about how Helix's robust systems handled the threat automatically. My name didn't come up once. HR sent me a $25 pizza coupon the following week for employee appreciation. That was about when I realized how things really worked there. Executives took the credit, HR handed out crumbs, and the rest of us were supposed to be grateful for it. I started documenting everything: config files, internal scripts, credential rotations, even the dumb mistakes no one would admit, in Helix's repos and wiki. Nothing left the building. I wasn't planning anything shady. I just wanted a record on their systems, because I knew one day someone would blame me for their negligence. Every month I tried raising the same warnings: staffing gaps, single point of failure, no redundancy. I put it in reports, sent summaries, even attached graphs showing how close we were to breaking. Bram's response was always the same: "We're stretched thin, but you've got this, Aaron." He meant, "You're alone, deal with it." At some point, the job stopped being about growth or challenge. It became survival. I worked because if I didn't, the company would probably fall apart. It wasn't even about loyalty anymore. I just hated sloppy systems. I couldn't stand seeing things crumble from laziness. The worst part wasn't the hours. It was the fake appreciation. Every time I'd fix a major issue, they'd toss some buzzwords at me: heroic effort, commitment to excellence, spirit of innovation. No raise, no backup, no plan to make things sustainable. Then came the quarterly review. Bram smiled through it, said all the right words. Aaron's contributions are invaluable, but we all need to remember teamwork. I remember thinking, what team? It was just me. I realized something else during those long nights. Helix didn't really want a department. They wanted a shield, someone they could point to and say, "We're covered." I was their safety net. So I did what I always do when systems get fragile. I prepared for failure. At home, I kept a separate notebook of scrubbed patterns, anonymized architecture shapes, generic dependency checklists, and vendor-neutral emergency playbooks. No names, no IP ranges, no credentials, no Helix diagrams. Just abstractions you'd find in any SRE handbook. If the place ever blew up, I wanted my conscience clear. Still, I didn't walk away right away. Not yet. Because part of me hoped they'd wake up. Maybe Bram would finally see the risk. Maybe they'd hire help. But they didn't. Instead, they cut the budget again. By then, even the cleaning crew knew me as the guy who never leaves. I wasn't vengeful, just done. Done arguing, done trying to fix a culture that thought pizza coupons were equal to respect. When HR called me in for that clarification meeting, I knew exactly how it would end. What they didn't know was that they were firing the only thing holding their digital empire together. They'd learn soon enough. Back then, before the firing and the glass-walled ambush, things at Helix were already starting to rot. Everyone pretended to be busy while the same 2 or 3 of us actually kept the place running. By the 3rd year, I was clocking 60 hours a week and still covering holes left by departments that no longer existed. That's when I went to a cybersecurity meetup in Chicago. I paid for the trip myself because Helix had temporarily suspended conference travel. It was a small event: cheap hotel ballroom, folding chairs, free coffee that tasted burnt. I gave a short talk on handling incident response with limited resources. Mostly small teams like mine showed up, people just trying to keep systems alive. Afterward, a woman walked up and introduced herself as Renata Voss, head of security at Veritas Dynamics. I'd heard of them, a growing security firm known for clean architecture and good culture. She didn't waste time with flattery. You did all that work solo? She asked. Yeah, company downsized everyone but me. She nodded like she understood too well. You must have no life. Pretty much. She laughed, then said, How do you feel about consulting? Weekends only, non-competitive. We could use a brain like yours. I told her I'd need to check my contract first. She appreciated that. No pushy recruiter energy, just straightforward respect. That night in the hotel, I actually pulled up Helix's HR portal and read the policy. It only restricted outside work if it was directly competitive or detrimental to Helix Systems' interests. Veritas was in security consulting, not SaaS products. No conflict. I downloaded the policy PDF and emailed it to myself. No appearance of conflict language anywhere. The last modified timestamp staring right at me. So I said yes. That first weekend, I logged into their sandbox environment. The difference was immediate. Their documentation made sense. Their tickets had actual context, and nobody messaged me at 2 a.m. asking how to reboot a server. It felt strange being treated like a professional again. I started with small things, helping them clean up messy code, setting up automation for certificate renewals, simplifying their monitoring dashboards. The kind of things that prevent disasters later. They listened. That was the part that hit hardest. At Helix, I'd explain a security risk and get ignored. At Veritas, I'd point something out, and an engineer would say, Got it. I'll fix that today. It reminded me why I got into tech in the first place. To solve problems, not babysit incompetence. By the second weekend, Renata added me to their internal Slack channel. She introduced me as the guy who keeps companies alive despite management. It was half a joke, half truth. She ran a tight but fair team, smart people who didn't posture. They debated openly, fixed things fast, and documented everything properly. I helped them streamline their security runbooks into something anyone could follow. No jargon, no fluff, just steps that worked. At home, the contrast was impossible to ignore. During the week, Helix kept sinking into chaos. Everyone acted more nervous than usual. Nova Train from compliance suddenly requested a random laptop audit. She said it was part of routine data hygiene, but nobody else got audited. I knew it was targeted. A day later, Dorian Hale from HR sent an email with the subject line, Friendly reminder about loyalty. It read like a threat wrapped in corporate tone, lines about commitment to core values and conflicts of interest. I didn't even reply. I kept both worlds separate. Different laptops, different networks, different VPNs. I used a dedicated router at home just for Veritas work. My Helix laptop never touched that connection. Everything was clean, compliant, and provable. The funny part was, I wasn't even trying to hide. I was just following their own policies better than they did. Still, I could sense Helix tightening around me. Meetings started happening without invites. Reports I wrote got edited down to sound like I was exaggerating problems. One afternoon, Bram stopped by my desk and said, You're working too hard. Don't burn out on us. It sounded less like concern and more like a warning. Money was getting tight too. Rent had just gone up, and the little appreciation bonuses Helix gave didn't cover much. I joked to Nico one night, Either Helix gives me a raise or Veritas does. He laughed, but there was truth in it. Veritas paid well, real market rates, not company store gift cards. By the fourth weekend, Renata asked if I could review some of their security processes before an audit. I spent a few hours writing a checklist and a few automation scripts to handle compliance scans. She messaged back, This is solid. You've saved my team a week. It was strange. I'd done more meaningful work in a few weekends at Veritas than in months at Helix. The last Monday of that month, I came back to the office and felt the shift immediately. People who used to chat with me by the coffee machine went silent when I walked in. Nova's door was half open, and I heard her mention my name during a call. Dorian passed me in the hall and said, Hope you're keeping focused, Aaron. He smiled like it was a joke, but it wasn't. I knew the whispers were starting. Someone must have seen me near the Veritas building or mentioned my name in the wrong place. Still, I didn't change anything. My work was clean, my conscience was clean, and the consulting contract was legitimate. I wasn't stealing or betraying anyone. I was just doing what Helix refused to let me do, work efficiently and get paid fairly. By then, weekends at Veritas felt like a second life. During the week, I was patching holes at a company that didn't value me. On weekends, I was building systems that worked. I didn't realize it yet, but the line between those two worlds was starting to blur, and Helix was about to notice. That's where the flashback ends, the point where everything started to tip. After that, the meetings stopped being normal. The stares got longer, and the emails got colder. I didn't know it then, but the countdown to my clarification meeting had already begun. Now back to the moment after I got terminated and received Renata's text. I didn't walk straight to the parking lot. I stood there for a second, letting the sun burn off the leftover office air from my skin. Across the street, I could still see Helix's big chrome logo reflecting in the glass. 3 years of my life trapped behind that fake shine. The security guard hovered near the door like he wasn't sure if he should follow me. I waved him off. "It's fine. I'm not coming back for the staplers." He gave a small nod and went inside. The city noise hit next. Car horns, people rushing, the smell of food trucks starting lunch early. For the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about alert logs or expired certs. I was just a guy on a sidewalk with a backpack, a cactus, and no job. By the time I pulled into the parking lot outside Veritas Dynamics, I'd already flipped the switch in my head. Helix was the past. The Veritas building was smaller. No glass towers or fake plants, just clean lines and practical design. When I walked in, the receptionist smiled for real. "You must be Aaron. Renata's expecting you." Inside, the office didn't hum with fake tension like Helix's. People actually talked, laughed, asked questions. No one pretended. Renata met me in the hallway, tablet in one hand, coffee in the other. "You look lighter," she said. "Got rid of a few pounds of corporate nonsense," I said. She grinned. "Good. Come on, I've got something to show you." She led me into their operations room, a wall of monitors, dashboards, and live logs. Neat, organized, quiet. "This is what a healthy system looks like," she said. "No fires, no panic." I stared at the screens. I almost forgot it could look like that. She nodded. "We could use someone who knows what chaos feels like." "You free full-time now?" I smirked. "Effective immediately." She handed me a visitor badge. "Let's talk after lunch. I think you'll like what we have in mind." As we walked, she said, "If Helix ever comes calling, route it through us. No side gigs while you're onboarding." I nodded. For the rest of the day, I shadowed a few of their engineers. They weren't burned out or paranoid. They asked smart questions and actually listened. I helped one of them tighten a log rotation script, and instead of taking credit, he thanked me and wrote my name in the commit message. That small gesture hit harder than I expected. At 4 p.m., Renata brought me into a small glass-walled room. Not the cold kind Helix used for lectures, but open, with sunlight and plants that were actually alive. "We want you to take a lead role here," she said. "You'll have a real team this time. Not just you holding up a collapsing wall." I leaned back. "You sure you want someone who just got fired for working too hard?" "That's exactly the kind of person I want," she said. I didn't even try to hide my grin. "Then yeah, I'm in." She extended her hand. "Welcome to Veritas Dynamics, Aaron." I shook it, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like a problem waiting to happen. Paperwork signed. Start date, Monday. When I left the building that evening, the air felt different. Not heavy, not stale. I pulled out my phone, saw an unread message from Nico. "They're saying you got escorted out." "You good?" I typed back. "Better than ever. Keep those backups current." Then I slipped the phone in my pocket and started walking. The sun was lower now, reflecting off the glass towers that still looked fancy from a distance, but hollow up close. Behind me, Helix Systems was already fading into the background. Ahead of me was a company that actually listened. The building felt lighter behind me, probably because I'd been the only one doing any heavy lifting. My first week at Veritas Dynamics felt like stepping into a different universe. No fake smiles, no empty all hands about synergy. Just real work, organized people, and clean processes. On day one, I sat in a proper onboarding session. They had everything ready. Account credentials, system access, even a map of their infrastructure printed out with actual notes. The lead engineer walked me through the pipeline, and every step made sense. Nobody was guessing. Nobody was winging it. By the end of that first morning, I'd met the entire security team. 6 people, all sharp. No one asked me to just fix this real quick. They wanted to collaborate. When I suggested a change to their incident workflow, they debated it for 5 minutes, tested it, then pushed it live. That kind of speed without chaos felt unreal. Meanwhile, the other half of my brain still half expected a PagerDuty ping from Helix Systems. It was weird not having one. For 3 years, silence meant something was broken. At Veritas, silence actually meant things were fine. 2 days in, Renata stopped by my desk. You're settling in fast, she said. Yeah, I told her. Kinda nice working somewhere that documents things before disaster. She smiled. That's the goal. Around that same time, my phone started buzzing. Not from Veritas, but from old contacts. I ignored the first few until I saw one from Nico. They said you sabotaged something. Systems are crashing everywhere. I stared at the message, half amused, half annoyed. Nah, just physics. Entropy's undefeated. He didn't reply. He was probably too busy putting out fires. By Friday of that same week, word had spread. Industry chat rooms were full of people asking what was happening at Helix. Someone posted screenshots of their status page. Red lights everywhere. Expired TLS certs. Misconfigured DNS entries. Login errors spiking. The company that used to brag about robust uptime was now trending for the wrong reasons. I didn't touch a thing on my way out, but I knew exactly how this was unfolding. I'd warned them months ago about those certificate renewals and single points of failure. They ignored me, said my tone was too negative. Now, the negative was hitting production. Renata caught me reading a thread about it in the break room. That your old place? She asked. Yep. Looks bad. Yeah. Systems don't like neglect. She smirked. You gonna rescue them? Sure, I said, if they can afford me. Later that afternoon, one of our analysts showed me a leaked snippet from a Helix internal chat. Someone had posted, "Who has access to this system?" Another replied, "No one since Aaron left." It was hard not to laugh. By evening, tech news sites picked it up. Helix Systems suffers major outage. Client access impacted. Stock dipped 15% in a single day. Their PR team pushed a statement blaming a temporary infrastructure misconfiguration. Translation: nobody knew what they were doing. At Veritas, the atmosphere was the opposite. We pushed 3 successful deployments that week. Our monitoring stayed green. Every alert that popped up got triaged within minutes. I started rewriting parts of their internal playbooks to make incident response even cleaner. Renata walked by, reading over my shoulder. This is good. You're making everyone faster already. I shrugged. Just cutting out the dumb steps. Keep doing that, she said. You're setting the tone. That night, I got another message from Nico. They're losing it. People are pointing fingers. Nova's calling emergency meetings nonstop. Dorian sent a memo saying, trust in leadership. I said, sounds stable. He replied with a single line, they should have listened. Saturday morning, I stopped by a cafe near my apartment to catch up on the latest updates. Helix's outage was still all over the news. Clients were threatening to pull contracts. Some company insiders had leaked chat screenshots showing chaos in their Slack. Questions like, did Aaron ever document this? And where's the failover guide? By noon, one of the bigger industry blogs ran the headline, Helix's lone engineer warned leadership for years before exit. They didn't use my full name, but everyone who knew me connected the dots. Renata sent a message. You seeing this? You just got internet famous. I replied, not the kind I asked for. She wrote back, relax. It'll blow over. Or blow up. Either way, we're ready if they call. By Sunday, they did more than call. An unknown number started ringing my phone every few hours. I didn't recognize it, so I ignored it. The next morning, my phone started vibrating before the sun came up. Same unknown number. I almost ignored it again, but curiosity won. Mr. Vale, this is Victor Ainsley, the voice said, clipped and tense. Chairman of the board at Helix Systems. I leaned back in my chair. I figured. You sound like someone used to getting their way. He didn't argue. Our production systems are failing. Clients are threatening to cancel contracts. We're bleeding money by the hour. We need your help. Name your price. I let the pause hang just long enough to make him sweat. $2,000 an hour, I said. 6-hour minimum, paid in advance. I work remote, limited access, nothing long-term. He exhaled. Fine. Anything else? Yeah. You're going to post a written apology internally admitting you mishandled my termination and issue a public statement on your press page and LinkedIn. You'll reinstate severance for the people you dumped this quarter. And you'll hire Nico Alaric full-time with a proper budget and post an internal correction that the appearance of conflict clause wasn't in effect when you fired me. That got him. A sharp breath, then silence. I pictured him pinching the bridge of his nose. We'll agree to all of that, he said finally. Just fix it. Panic costs more than pride. Within half an hour, Veritas Legal sent a 1-page emergency MSA. Renata greenlit the engagement, Helix signed, and wired payment to Veritas. They provisioned a temporary admin account named consult_ext_1, probably so they could disable it the second I logged out. Fine by me. The video call opened with a dozen little squares. Faces looked gray under fluorescent light. Victor sat at the head of a long boardroom table, tie half loosened. Bram Layton, Nova Train, and Dorian Hale joined from their offices. Dorian's hair was a mess. Nova's lipstick was perfect, but her expression wasn't. "Morning," I said. "Let's start with what's broken." Victor gestured to Bram. "Show him the dashboards." Bram shared his screen. Spiking error graphs, red status icons everywhere. Authentication failures, failed API calls, database timeouts. I recognized half the system names. The other half were new microservices built without my documentation. "You let these things grow like weeds," I said. "Okay, here's what we're going to do. First rule, no one touches production except me. This is triage, not a rebuild. Goal is to stop the bleeding in under 6 hours, then schedule permanent remediation." Nova jumped in. "You don't have authority here anymore." Victor cut her off. "He does now. Sit back and let him work." Her jaw tightened. I started methodically, step by step. First, I rebuilt the broken Elasticsearch indexes, compressing old data and restoring rollover policies so logs stopped eating the disks. Then I cleared half a dozen duplicate cron jobs that had been stacking memory leaks for weeks. The error rate dropped within 20 minutes. These were stopgaps with guardrails. Good enough to stabilize, not good enough to forget. I left comments in every script about the temporary assumptions. Bram tried to reclaim control. "We were about to try that." "Sure you were," I said, after Googling it. He shut up. Next, I fixed their rate-limiting filters on the authentication gateway, patched the cache layer, and rotated the stale TLS certificates. I didn't use shortcuts. Wrote small scripts so anyone could maintain it later. The irony wasn't lost on me. The guy they fired for conflict of interest was now writing their survival manual. Every half hour, I paused to narrate what I'd done and why. This step reduces disk churn. This one cleans the queue backlog. This one makes sure your cron jobs don't overlap. My notes were blunt. I didn't gloat, didn't crack jokes. Efficiency spoke louder than words. Dorian cleared his throat near the end of hour 3. "You make this sound easy." "It was always easy," I said. "You just didn't listen." By hour 4, green lights started popping back onto the dashboards. The help desk queue flattened out. Victor's shoulders lowered for the first time. He unmuted. "You're saving us, Mr. Vale." "Not really," I said. "I'm just doing the job you fired me from." Nova muttered something under her breath. I pretended not to hear. At hour 6, production was stable. Metrics looked normal again. Logins and payments recovered. The fire was out, and I'd opened a stack of tickets with owners, dates, and maintenance windows for the permanent fixes. "Systems are stable," I said, "but you're still fragile. If you want this to stick, you'll need to rebuild your process, not just your code." Victor nodded like a man hearing a sermon. "Understood. We'll have a board vote on restructuring IT immediately." "Do that," I said. "And remember, hire people who know what they're doing. Stop measuring loyalty in coffee cups." The call ended quietly. No thanks, no applause, just exhaustion. 15 minutes later, the wire hit Veritas's account. We billed it as an emergency engagement. Finance logged my hours. Another email followed. An internal memo copied to half the company. Subject: Statement of Acknowledgement. We recognize that the termination of former employee Aaron Vale was mishandled and inconsistent with Helix Systems' values. We thank Mr. Vale for his continued professionalism and assistance in restoring system stability. A public apology, sanitized but real enough. 10 minutes later, the same text went live on Helix's press page and LinkedIn. Right after, I got a message from Nico. They posted the apology. "You're trending on the internal chat. Half the company's saying you saved them." I smiled, typing back, "Congrats on the new job offer. Make sure they give you a budget before you say yes." He sent a thumbs up emoji. I sat back, rubbing my eyes. The quiet in my apartment felt heavy but clean. I checked one last thing. The Helix monitoring dashboard still open on my secondary screen. All green, stable load, nothing screaming for attention. That's what competence buys. Peace and silence. I drafted a final email to Victor. No attachments, no signatures, just one line. "You're good for now, but don't mistake survival for security." I hit send and closed the laptop. Outside my window, the morning traffic hummed along. Somewhere across the city, Nova was probably rewriting policy documents to hide her mistakes. Bram was telling the board this had been part of his recovery plan, and Dorian was preparing another empty wellness memo. The entitlement that ruined that company wasn't going away overnight, but at least now, their systems wouldn't crash every time someone sneezed. 12 grand for 6 hours of work. Not bad for a guy they called Replaceable. 3 months later, I walked into the new office at Veritas Dynamics and had to stop for a second. The sign on the glass wall read, Fortify, Security Consulting Division. My division. 10 people worked there now, including Nico, who left Helix to join us. The space looked nothing like Helix's cold corporate maze. This place actually had energy. Whiteboards covered in diagrams, monitors with dashboards that made sense, real plants that weren't made of plastic. Someone had drawn a cartoon version of me on the team board with the caption, Lead Firewall. Morning, boss, one of the engineers said as I walked by. Morning, I replied, and stop calling me that. I just happen to like meetings less than Renata does. That got a laugh. Fortify had grown faster than any of us expected. Clients started lining up almost immediately after the Helix collapse made headlines. Every call started the same way. We don't want to be the next Helix. We didn't even need marketing. The story carried itself. I built the team around one rule. Nobody here was irreplaceable. Everyone documented their work. No single point of failure. No overnight heroics that burned people out. We fixed problems and left them cleaner than we found them. The culture worked. Everyone knew exactly what to do. And if someone got sick, the systems didn't fall apart. Midway through that first week, Nico poked his head into my office holding a small pot. Inside it was a familiar cactus. Found this on your old desk when I went to grab my stuff, he said. Survived all the chaos, so I figured it deserved a second chance. I grinned. Employee number 2. Someone passing by overheard and called out, Promote the cactus before he promotes himself. The room cracked up. It felt good. Honest laughter. Not that stiff office chuckle people used at Helix to hide frustration. The projects we took on were challenging but fair. Banks, startups, logistics firms. Everyone wanted proper defenses and processes that wouldn't crumble if one engineer quit. We didn't sell fear. We sold preparedness. Renata stopped by often but never hovered. She handled the big partnerships while I ran operations. You've got a good rhythm here, she said one morning, watching the team run through an incident simulation. I just gave people what I never had, I said. Clear rules, enough hands, and actual credit for their work. She nodded. You turned getting fired into a promotion. I smiled. Yeah, cheaper than therapy. By the end of that quarter, Fortify had 7 major clients. Our name started showing up in industry reports. Veritas stock climbed. We even got invited to a cybersecurity conference to present a session titled Building Resilient Systems Without Burning Out Engineers. I stood on stage next to Renata and watched rows of faces nod along as I explained how overworked teams create their own vulnerabilities. It's not talent that saves systems, I said. It's structure. No one should be a hero. Heroes burn out. After the talk, a younger engineer stopped me in the hallway. You're the Helix guy, right? The one who walked out? Yeah, I said. Good for you, man. That place was a mess. Still is, I said. He laughed and walked off. A few weeks later, an internal memo from a contact reached me. Updates from Helix. Novatrain had left for a compliance job at a smaller firm, claiming she wanted a change of environment. Dorian Hale vanished from LinkedIn completely. Rumor was he'd been let go quietly after the board reviewed his conduct. Bram Layton was still there technically. He didn't speak at conferences anymore. No one quoted him in press releases. He existed, but he'd been sidelined into irrelevance. Helix kept running, but not the same way. The company rebuilt most of the infrastructure based on the notes I'd written, the ones they'd once ignored. Their new CSO even cited Fortify as a model for process design. Renata showed me that clip during a team meeting. You're basically their blueprint now, she said. I shrugged. At least they learned something. That Friday, the team went out for lunch. It was noisy and messy, the way good teams are. Nico complained about a vendor who ignored his documentation, someone else teased him about his hair, and I just sat back watching. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for a pager alert. There was no crisis hiding under the surface, just normal problems that smart people could handle. After lunch, I took a walk by myself through downtown. It had been months since I'd passed by the Helix building, but curiosity won. The logo was still there, but faded. One of the upper floors had a for-lease sign taped to the window. The lobby looked quieter than I remembered. No chatter, no energy. Just that same cold white light spilling onto the sidewalk. I stopped across the street, looking up for a few seconds. It didn't make me angry anymore, just thoughtful. They'd fired me to make a point, but the point ended up proving itself. You can't build an empire on arrogance and expect it to hold. My phone buzzed. A message from Renata. New client confirmed. Finance group in London wants Fortify for a full rebuild. I texted back, on it. Let's make sure they never become the next Helix. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and glanced one last time at the building before turning away. They fired me for having two jobs. Turns out, I was the only one doing theirs. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.